Welcome back to Midnight Mayhem. I'm going to be your host today.
I'm Bobby, and I love horror.
I'm Leo, and I love movies.
And I'm Raymond, the other guy.
And so today we're going to be talking about the most influential decades of horror. And each one of us has a individual favorite decade of horror. So we chose our favorite decades in horror.
I want to point out the elephant in the room.
Yeah,
we're actually on video today. We actually have a camera.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when are we gonna address the camera in the room? And it was like, oh, let's just not tell anybody. Maybe they won't notice.
Hopefully.
They're just listeners. They just never know.
But yeah, for today, yeah, we have video. We have a new setup right here with the face hugger in the background. It's a really cool. It's really neat.
And for our weebs, we got guts. There you go. Yeah.
It looks spooky enough.
We're gonna add more stuff in the future, make it more.
I want a Necronomicon. Throw it down in the world. I want that.
It's already on the buy list. I have
one right there.
That would be pretty cool.
I have a list of things I want to buy for the set, and we'll
someday.
If you guys want to pitch in, I just can't be dropping all this money
We're all
in case this fails. I don't know what I'm gonna do with a Necronomicon prop.
Honestly, I think that should be kind of cool. Honestly, I never thought about that.
So
I told you about it. I was like, look at all this cool stuff we should buy for the set. And you're like, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. As I'm looking through my bank account, I'm like, yeah, dude, yeah, sure, yeah.
You're like, oh, this is really cool. We should buy it for the set. You're like, I don't even know if I can eat tonight.
Exactly, dude.
All right, well, there you go. Hello, this is what I look like if that's not what you were expecting. There you go.
Definitely not what they're
very Mexican.
It's sorry, not what they were expecting at all.
Exactly. They're like, oh, they're just a bunch of middle-aged men. Like, yeah.
So that's Leo, and then that's Raymond. There you go.
Yeah, they got that from the introduction.
I don't know. Maybe they missed our mouse with these nice boom mics that we got.
Thank you for buying those, by the way.
The pop mics.
Anyway, back on track. We're trying to make a short episode today.
So yeah, today is gonna be a little shorter than usual. We're gonna be talking about decades in horror, and starting from the very beginning, from the very start of horror, every decade had its own individual taste of horror.
Yeah, like any movie, it's gonna evolve over time.
Exactly, yeah, and it seems like every decade, it doesn't matter, starting from like the 1900s all the way to present day, it seems like every decade has like a theme of where horror lies in that decade, But I guess I'll start off. I feel like the most important decade of horror is the 1930s. Mainly because from a filmmaking point of view, that's where like horror became like a mainstream into cinemas. That's when Dracula came out, Frankenstein, The Mummy, and I think Frankenstein. It was Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That one came out, and The Mummy. No, Dracula, Frankenstein, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They all came out in 1931.
The Invisible Man, if I'm not mistaken.
1933.
1933. We'll fact check that. If we're wrong, the right date will be on the screen. Because we can do that now.
No, so Frankenstein was the first one released by Universal.
I don't want to interrupt and be like a weeb or anything, but do you think like the way horror was introduced in like the 1930s, kind of like how anime is now, where it's like it was like, oh, it's whatever, like it's a niche thing, like it's not gonna thrive in this industry, and people are like, oh, like
that's what they thought. Yeah,
that's what they thought.
Yeah.
Now with like more modern days, like with anime and stuff, people are more like accepting of it in theaters.
I think anime is so much more dismissive because of the fact that it's animation.
It's animated.
Yeah, it's cartoons, and so people will be like,
true, yeah.
oh, yeah, it's for kids. Like, and then you watch some stuff, you're like, no, it's not for a kid.
Yeah, because I know I saw a special feature. I think it was on Dead Meat where they were talking about like the cinematography for like, I think it was Dracula.
Yeah,
and it's just like that's filmmaking, like at its core.
Yeah,
like,
no, and
all the special effects, the lighting, everything they did to make it just look how it looked, especially how limited they were with the black and white.
Yeah, of course. And then one of the biggest things in obviously the cinematography of that time era, it was coming from the late 1920s. They were using German Expressionism, which was, it's like a filming technique that was developed in Germany, where they use harsh shadows and like harsh shapes in the movie set. One of my favorite films. What was the name of that movie? Can't remember.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the movie at all.
If you can come up with the name, because I had it, but I forgot.
Okay. Well, you keep brainstorming. Maybe I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, I mean Nosferatu is one of them. That's one of the most famous ones.
Yeah.
Because of SpongeBob, right?
Yeah, because of SpongeBob. They say that the reason why German Expressionism came to be was because right after World War One, Germany was so broke that, you know, people that were in the industry in Germany, they couldn't even afford lighting. So they would shoot in the daytime with natural lights, but if they wanted to shoot like a nighttime scene, they would have to like paint shadows to like
make it look like
make it look like it was dark. And so it created this like really obscure like gothic tone to it. And that obviously carried over to the 1930s, and you see it in like early movies like Dracula, Frankenstein, all these movies, they have that gothic tone to them. But yeah, no, I mean, that's just like the main important ones. Obviously, you know, you have White Zombie that came out in 1932. It's the first zombie movie. Freaks, that movie's really cool. Came out in 1932 as well.
It was cool because you didn't have to go to the circus to see them.
Jeez.
I mean, if you watch the movie, you know, like. You know,
I mean,
you know, it's a joke.
It's kind of messed up. It's a really controversial movie because have you heard of Freaks?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is I see these movies are so much older that like I like know the
like
classics,
we're
but
old,
I don't know.
We're not that old.
So
like,
it's
okay. I'm gonna say a line from the movie, and I'm gonna see if you
probably
might
not,
know
but...
about it. Where he's walking on the table and he goes, "One of us,
oh, yeah,
one of us."
I've heard it, but I knew it was The Simpsons.
It's probably The Simpsons. But yeah, it was a horror movie about people with you know, physical deformities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it was about.
So you know, people with like shrunken skulls.
that joke would have killed in the 1930s.
Yeah, so like they had a person with like half a torso. They had and there were these people that kind of like they work at a circus, you know, but
like a freak show, basically.
Exactly.
So
a
if
freak
you've ever
show.
seen like American Horror Story Freak Show,
yeah,
it's almost like that kind of story.
Yeah, almost exactly like that. But it was controversial because it's like these were actual people. You know, with actual,
they're not special effects.
No, it weren't actually space. They hired people with actual like deformities.
This sounds familiar. The more you keep talking about them, I'm like, wait, I feel like I've heard like a video on it, like on YouTube.
It's probably
it's more progressive, I guess you can say.
It would have been one of those.
Because you know how some people they're like, oh, like why are they hiring like white people to do an Asian person's voice in modern day?
Oh yeah.
But now it's over there. It's like, oh, like we're getting actual people with like deformities to portray this in our story.
But they were portrayed negatively. That's the controversy. That was the controversy.
I don't think they were portrayed negatively in the sense that they were portrayed like how people saw them, but they were like, no, we're just people.
Sure.
Like, they weren't cannibalistic or anything, right? Like they weren't like kills eyes.
No,
I don't know. I haven't seen this movie.
They kill people, so
pretty much people were like, "Oh, you're gross, you're whatever," and they're like, "No, like we're just normal people. Like I don't get why you're treating us any different." You know, and then they kind of, you know, it's Revenge of the Freaks.
Okay,
you
so
know,
like,
sure,
like an
yeah.
anti-bullying type thing, but like
a little bit, yeah.
Not anti-bullying, but you get what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
it was the first on their bullies.
It was the first after-school PTA.
But no, okay, that makes sense.
The same year that Freaks came out, The Mummy came out. You know,
Brendan Fraser, great movie.
Great movie, yeah, exactly. The following year, Invisible Man came out.
Yeah, okay.
Another classic, and that same year, King Kong also came out. All these movies were distributed by Universal. So if you think about it, like Universal had like a killer streak in like the beginning of the 1930s, where they created all these horror icons that are gonna be known for like the rest of time. Like when you think of Dracula, you like reference like the lines from that very first movie. Even if you haven't seen that movie, you still like do the accent. You know exactly. Yeah. Like the Romanian accent. You know. You still, when you think of Frankenstein, like people still put their arms out when they walk like Frankenstein. People like, you know, like it's like these iconic things that even if you haven't seen the movie, you know of them, you know?
Built from these classic.
Exactly.
Classic films. It'd be fun if you swing by Universal someday, and because they have like displays and stuff of it.
Oh yeah, of
Well,
course.
that you can always see them walking around. I remember I
I'll
was
take a
assaulted
pic- yeah,
by
I'll take a picture.
Frankenstein.
No, I'm saying like it would be a fun like tour video, like for
Oh,
for
yeah,
the
sure,
audience.
sure, yeah,
Something
yeah.
cool
Or like
where,
horror nights, something like that.
if you don't live like
Yeah,
near
of course.
Universal. I don't think
know.
they're only in California.
But here,
I mean, Universal Studios Japan.
it's
Yeah,
not
okay,
the
Maybe
same,
there's
though.
one in
So there's two?
Florida. I might be thinking
maybe, I
about
don't know.
Disney.
But I'm saying that might be cool since you're
Yeah.
so passionate about it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And,
no.
you know, something cool for the more people to see.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, honestly, like, well, this is my favorite decade of horror, you know, mainly because for me it's the most influential, you
It's
know.
structured like what horror is today.
Exactly, and it's structured like horror movies to come after that too. But the thing with that is that I feel like the most influential part of that decade was the beginning, because after 1935,
It kind of dies down.
it basically died down. Basically because like there was this censorship that was developed by pretty much the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
I could see. I
Yeah,
can see
so
that.
they didn't have the MPAA rating that they have right
Yes.
now. That didn't exist back then.
Mhm.
So they had certain categories like A for adults. You know, in this case, like since horror was like a new thing, they created H for horrific. You know, but that also didn't restrict kids from going to see these movies. You
Mhm.
know, because you know they couldn't go see the ones for adults. You know,
Because it was an adult rating. So you like, oh, you need, little Timmy can't go and like, I want to see the A-rated movie, but they're like, oh, like,
exactly,
you
dude,
could be
exactly.
like 5 years old, just get back from the coal mines.
Yeah, exactly.
And then be like, I want to watch a movie, and like, oh, I'm going to see this H-rated movie. And
Yeah.
then you're going to see the Invisible Man kill like 100 people on a train.
Yeah, dude. And it's like in 1934, the Production Code of Administration, the BCA, was created. It was pretty much taken over by Joseph I. Breen, who was a hardcore Catholic, you know? And he pretty much like took over these rules. And after 1934, every horror movie kind of like script, it kind of like went by him. And if he didn't like it, they had to like studios had to revise the scripts, you know?
So almost like a modern day, like when people make a movie and they're like, oh, you guys can make it, but it's going to be NC-17. Like, oh, we're going to just try and go for like a PG-13 so we get more people to see it.
Yeah,
But it's
exactly.
basically just him saying
But just
like,
super early on, where there
Yeah.
was no restrictions.
yeah,
on
but
it.
it's just this one guy
Exactly.
being like, no, I don't like it.
yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah,
of
of
stuff
course.
in society like
Yeah,
that,
no, dude,
unfortunately.
yeah, and it's like, and obviously, you know, since he's like a hardcore Catholic, obviously, like themes of like devil and demons and demonic like possessions and stuff like that, like, because if you think of Dracula,
Like,
like
they would have never made The Exorcist in
no,
1930s.
like if you think of Dracula, Dracula right there, like that's already like, you know,
That's
Yeah.
pushing it, but I mean, it's also
Yeah.
like, oh, the cross is like, hey, like it stops them.
I know, but it's like they didn't want to use that to be like a source of like, you know, like, oh, like, you know, the cross.
Yeah, you don't want it to be like a popular icon.
They-
We're like,
yeah,
oh, they get this thing from
exactly.
This movie, But it's
Exactly.
like, no, that's from the church.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's blasphemy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So after 1935, they started revising a bunch of horror movies. One of the ones that got affected the most was I think it was like the sequel to Dracula, The Daughter of Dracula, which came out in 1936, I think. That one got heavily revised. It got cut down like crazy, and like when it came out, like people didn't really like it that much. Because of that, the studios kind of thought, they're like, you know what, it's too expensive to just keep revising the movies and
Yeah.
keep cutting it down, keep
Basically,
reshooting
they
it.
just thought like, oh, it's a dying genre.
So they just from 1936 to like the early 40s, they just kind of like stopped with horror, which was kind of like it's
It wasn't
so
profitable, or it wasn't. Or
it
not
was
profitable,
yeah
I
it's
guess, kind of-
like yeah at that moment it was like a waste of money, and it was kind of ironic because it's like they had such a crazy kickstart in the beginning
Mhm.
for it to die so quickly. You know what I mean?
I mean, I will say it's almost kind of like superhero movies. Like in the early 2000s, they would make like Spider-Man, X-Men, and people liked them. They weren't bad, but then they just kind of like died out for like 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah,
Before we got
yeah,
into
then-
sure,
almost
yeah.
Yeah,
cinematic
now there's
universe,
yeah.
Before we got Iron Man.
Where now
Yeah,
everything
no,
has
that's
to be
true. I
somehow
mean, that's
related to
because
that.
the movie started bombing. You know, like that's.
But
I
that's
feel
because they
like,
were
yeah.
interfered with so much by production.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Also,
You made me think as well, everything you were saying reminded me of there's a documentary I believe on Shudder that
Uh-huh.
it's like, I think it's a history of horror, and it literally walks through almost everything you talked about.
you probably
I
heard
didn't watch it yet,
Freaks.
but I've seen
oh,
it.
okay.
I didn't see it. I just know that it exists and I want to watch it,
Uh-huh.
but it's been a little bit since I watched a documentary.
I saw it. They do talk about like
Oh,
freaks.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. 'Cause I was like, I want to kind of check that out now. So
I
we're
use
not
your
sponsored.
account.
Hopefully.
We're still poor. Just because we got a camera doesn't mean we got a budget.
But yeah, no. Overall, like that's my favorite decade. It has to me the most iconic horror, creatures, characters. But
Like the greatest starter to a genre. Like I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think there's an earlier starter.
These
to,
characters will
action
never
movies.
die.
You're
I'm
like
trying
you're not
to
gonna
think of
find
one, but,
you're not gonna find a 1930s like action movie and be like, oh yeah, they're gonna bring back this.
Yeah,
character.
no, these characters will never die. They'll always be the same ones. And like I said before, like when people imitate these characters, they'll imitate the OG characters that came out in that era. They'll do the Dracula accent. They'll kind of like growl like Frankenstein and
Bela Lugosi.
Bela Lugosi. Yeah.
So you
Basically the definitive Dracula forever now.
Yeah, pretty much.
You specifically love that generation for the foundation that laid out for.
Exactly.
It's basically literally the building blocks. Like
Yeah, and
the
a lot of
baby
people-
steps that cradled everything.
Of
that
course,
came
yeah.
next, so.
And it's like a lot of people
That's
find
pretty
those movies boring. Like a lot of people's like, oh, it's
By today's
slow.
standards,
Of course,
nobody's
yeah.
gonna be like, oh, I want to see like somebody's head get cut off or
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
But
no,
to me,
it was
it's
more,
like,
I think it was more because you remember how in one of the other episodes you saying you like atmospheric horror.
yeah.
That's like the perfect example.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
There you go.
But
You wanna lay it up over to Raymond?
yeah. So Raymond, what's your favorite decade of horror?
So I'm just gonna crap over everything you said. So remember how one of the other episodes I was saying like, oh, I like like dumb fun horror movies.
Yeah, this should be fun.
Yeah. So my
I'll put something
favorite
down.
is the 2000s. So basically,
He's the other guy for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a movie guy. I'm not a horror guy. I'm here to cause chaos. So pretty much from 2000 to 2009, maybe a little 2010. I'll sneak that in there.
Sure. Yeah.
Nothing was like great in this decade.
It had
but it
its
was
standouts.
fun. There had a lot of standouts. So I'm just gonna read off a couple of this list right now. So I'm gonna do some dumb ones. I'm gonna do some good ones, right? So
I feel
Ready?
like
Hit me with it. Let's
I
go.
feel like you're gonna go
Dawn of the Dead, the remake.
Okay.
2000, was it
Good.
2004, 2005,
2004.
2004.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ring,
2002. Okay.
Yes.
right? There's gonna be 28 Days Later.
Okay. Good.
There's going to
2003.
be Cabin Fever,
2002. Awesome.
Descent,
Descent. Oh, the
yeah.
Descent. Okay.
Slither.
Oh, that one's fun. Okay.
Sorry.
One of my favorites, Trick or Treat, 2007.
That one was
Yes.
cool.
Dead Silence. Right? It's-
Cult. It
it's
had
a
cult following.
Like
Cult
I'm
following.
saying, there's a lot of stuff in this decade where it's like it's
2000.
fun
right?
to watch. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Early 2000s. So
Final
basically,
Destination, Dragging
yeah.
to Hell, Wreck, Paranormal Activity. All of those bangers are all there. So,
Paranormal Activity. When did Paranormal Activity come out?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
Nah,
Or
we got it in there.
2007.
You made it.
No, we made
No,
it.
no, hold on. I think
I think it was 2007
It's
early
Seven.
it's
release.
before 2010.
Okay.
That's for
I
sure.
think it
Wasn't on
came
my
out in
list.
2008.
2008. Okay. Yeah, and I can agree with you with that because it's like you grew up in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Well, we
'cause
all grew up in the 2000s.
I think it's more of a nostalgic factor where I'm like, oh, like I like this movie from a kid. But let's say, for
Yeah.
example, House of a Thousand Corpses. I remember watching that as a little youngster, when
Jeez.
everything was in black and white and we would play with the stick and the hoops.
When you shouldn't have.
Yeah,
you
when we
shouldn't have
shouldn't have.
watched it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I
It's
mean,
not
it's
a-
not like-
I
we didn't
remember-
have people watching us. It was the 90s. But
Not even have 5 older siblings.
yeah.
so.
Jeez.
But I remember watching it and I was like, oh, this is a good movie because I'm just like, oh, like there were kills in it. Everything was like gory and graphic.
Yeah.
And I watched it like 5 years later and I was like, this movie sucks. Like I don't know, maybe it's Rob Zombie's like directing, like no disrespect, but it was very
Stylized.
seizure inducing.
Yeah, it's like a music video.
Yeah,
Videos,
and
Okay. Yeah.
Like the one standout thing that I remember from that movie now, even just watching like the 5 years ago, is the Fishman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the clown.
Oh, Captain Howdy. Captain Howdy. No.
Yeah, that's actually
Holden?
right.
Captain.
Captain
Howdy
something.
From, Captain
Oh,
Howdy.
It's Captain something.
It's not Captain Howdy. Spalding. There we
There we
go.
go.
I was
Spalding.
like,
Yeah.
oh, that's
Fantastic
another
actor.
Yeah.
Passed away pretty recently. which is
Rest in
unfortunate.
peace. Yeah.
That's sad.
But
But
yeah.
I can say that movie created one of my favorite sequels, The Devil's Rejects.
So that's a brutal movie.
It's a brutal movie, but it's a movie that made me. It made me like it's the first movie that made me like switch my feelings around like a movie. By that, okay, I know it sounds
I get what you're saying, but
Like,
you gotta
I like-
explain it better to them.
So
Yeah.
so when the
I don't
movie
feel like
starts
a psycho-
out, you hate these
sociopath.
characters. These characters are sociopaths. You know,
Yes,
like they
yes.
kill people for fun. You hate them. You hate them. You can't root for them. But as the movie goes on, you find out that, you know, like these terrible people, they're still terrible. You know, but they're still human beings. And then like the good people start turning into them, or they start being like chaotic good. You know what I mean?
That on that note, another one that came out in the early 2000s that has a very similar like premise,
Uh-huh.
almost similar. You don't feel bad for the other guys. Was The Hills Have Eyes,
Okay.
because that kind of turns the suburban family from like survivalists to like, oh, we're gonna kill these guys for what they did to us.
Yeah.
No,
But I don't think at any point you feel bad for the.
If we're talking about the original,
cannibals.
I haven't watched the original Hills Have Eyes, but I've seen the remake of Hills Have Eyes.
The remake was pretty decent.
I like I like the remake a
Yeah.
lot. No, he kills everybody because they took his baby.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
I'm
that's
not saying.
kinda,
Yeah,
that's a little more.
I'm not saying. I'm not saying
It's,
he's not justified.
I
I'm
was
saying
like-
he turns into a monster.
Yeah, no, he
Rightfully so, but
Yeah, they steal his daughter, right? His little baby girl.
It's
And then
kinda-
and then I'm just like, you nerdy man, go get your baby back.
It's kind of funny because
I was
like
hyped as hell. Everything was sad up until that. Everything was sad before that, and then I was hyped for that next portion.
it seems
like,
like
you
all
get
these
that kid.
movies have like this thing of like characters turning good, like not turning good, but like turning evil, but them thinking that it's for good. You know
like
what I mean?
subverting expectations almost.
Yeah, like
So,
like a
one
chaotic
example I
chaotic
thought
good.
of was The Descent.
Sure.
I
So-
love that movie. So
Depending on which version you watch, it's I mean I guess it's in both versions, right? The only thing that changes is the ending.
Sure, yeah.
So she basically
There's
sacrifices her friend.
yeah, it was the versions are what the American version, and then the one that was in the UK,
There,
or was
maybe there's the one where she gets
like a
out, and then there's
director's
the
cut,
one
I
where
think.
she doesn't.
no, but it was in different areas.
Mhm.
I'm just double checking because I was like, I remember that was a thing.
Yeah,
That's what he means by both versions.
Oh, I see.
So go for it.
but yeah, pretty much it's that because like how you're saying like oh like they become like it subverts expectations. Where it's like oh like I'm gonna do something like messed up even though like I'm the good character.
Sure.
That's the only example I can think of.
I mean, also Saw came out in the early 2000s, right?
Yes.
That one, it's like like Jigsaw, like he's killing people that he believes should be tortured. You know what I mean?
Experience a near-death experience in order to change.
Exactly.
That's his whole
So
philosophy.
he's
He's
doing
weird.
these. I know he's doing these horrible
Yeah.
things because he feels like it's gonna benefit them for
Yeah,
good.
he-
He's
go
he's
va- yeah,
thinking
go
like
value
oh
it.
if you experience
His-
a near-death experience you're gonna live life better as a better person.
Exactly. So it's that's what
It
I'm
makes
getting
him
to.
more
Like,
complex as a character, but
Yeah.
also it's also a flawed logic, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, like all these characters are like being like super cruel, like for like reasons they feel like it's good.
Justified. Well,
Yeah,
it's good.
justified.
it's mainly,
Justified cruelty, I guess.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, no one ever sees themselves as the bad guy, the villain.
Yeah.
Very rarely, unless you're like Joker or something. A lot
Oh,
of, like,
yeah.
it's less believable as a viewer to sympathize with a character when you can't even remotely sympathize with the character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the story structure that a lot of directors and storytellers have to thread a line between making a character likable yet also despicable. You know?
Yeah,
So-
that's true.
So that's just kind of what you're referring to, because that generation of horror specifically does that a lot. Like where you're
Yeah.
like, I can't tell how to feel, but then sometimes it's like definitively wrong. The closest thing I have that it's more modern but doesn't do it correctly was Knock Knock, the one with Keanu Reeves.
Oh yeah.
Like that movie, I remember. Well, specifically, it's like you were never on the side of the bad guys, even though they were like trying to be like, oh, you shouldn't have cheated. Might as well.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's basically about Keanu Reeves' character in the movie cheating on his wife with two random people, and they take him hostage. That's the quick version of it. It's not really
Yeah.
all that amazing.
Yeah, but there was a lot of variety in the 2000s. I'm just gonna list off two, and then we'll go ahead and go on to your list.
Yeah, go for
So
it.
I'm gonna go on the short end, and then I'm gonna bring up like the deeper end, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I would say probably on this list I have right here, the short end of the stick would probably be something like Shaun of the Dead, horror comedy,
Okay.
great jokes. Who directed that? Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright.
Yeah, fantastic writing, fantastic jokes, fantastic execution. And then you have movies like Martyrs.
Oof.
So yeah, and those came out in the same decade.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of variety in this. Like I have more on this list, but I mean, we're kind of cut for time.
That's true. I feel like the kind of like a finishing thought. I feel like the early 2000s. You know, I know I joked about it. You know.
Yeah.
But I feel like that. You know, that decade like also was a start for a lot of genres as well. Like it was a start for found footage, even though it started
Like
in 1999.
Yeah.
You know, like
1999,
it was basically like
the first found footage.
Yeah, it's the first found footage. You know, but it was like 1999. It was almost the 2000s. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Then you had stuff like Paranormal Activity.
Paranormal Activity. You know, Rack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You also had Saw.
Quarantine if you're
Oh yeah.
not worldly. Like
you had Saw. You had.
I'm not worldly.
you gotta expand your horizons.
You had Hostel, so that also gave out kind of like the torture porn genre.
Torture porn, so like Hostel,
Exactly.
Saw. And I think more so like they were more willing to expand on different countries. So for example,
Yeah.
there were a lot of remakes that came out in that decade.
Oh
So
yeah,
there
there was a
The
lot of
Ring,
remakes.
The Grudge, One Missed Call,
Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead. Oh, Dawn of the Dead was still American made.
I know, but it was still a remake.
It was still a remake.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, I would say like.
Oh, but
almost
you're saying like
a-
remakes from foreign movies.
from foreign movies.
Gotcha,
Yeah. So there was a
okay,
lot
okay.
of those going on.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then there, just remakes in general. I feel
One
like it was
Missed
almost like a
Call.
renaissance for horror.
Tales of Two Sisters. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I see what you mean.
But that's my vote
All right.
for
Okay.
favorite decade. So
That's
I,
cool.
I can appreciate all generations.
It was
to
a
be
fun
honest with you.
decade. It was a very
it was
fun
a fun
decade.
decade. Like if I had to choose a decade,
It's
obviously.
our first Scream came out in 91.
The first
97?
Scream?
Yeah, the first Scream.
I think it's 97.
I just remember 90
I want to say
something.
94.
We'll figure it out in editing.
But no, the reason I'm bringing it up is like you just missed the mark. I remember that's
96.
96. Okay.
I was close.
No, yeah, if that had
I'm not even the movie guy.
if I had made it to that generation, I would have bumped up that generation just a little bit more because Scream
yeah.
is fantastic. But
Scream started off fantastic. I feel like the later entries, you can only do so much with like obsessed fans.
see now here,
Yeah.
I'll
I
talk
don't
about
know.
my.
I'm not a
portion.
big fan
Okay.
of. Yeah.
I went last because I talked the most. So.
All right.
All right, my turn.
If we abruptly cut, that's why. Roll
All right.
credits.
For time, dude.
Yeah, you know what? I gotta go. I gotta work
I'll
early
try to
tomorrow.
make it quick. I'll try to make it quick.
All right.
So my generation that I chose was 2010s.
Which makes sense for you because that's kind of when you got into horror.
Yes, but
Okay, that's interesting.
I was walking through it because I was like, okay, I can see the foundations being laid down. I can see the evolution of it, and then I get to where we get to slashers, and then we evolve from that. And I feel like right now, or at least within the last, well, it would be, we're not in 2 decades, but like the last like 12, 13 years. Yeah, 13 years.
Yeah.
As of right now, we're at that stage where like the directors we have can nail it, and it's fantastic, and in the genre of horror. Like I feel like we're at peak horror. That's how I feel right now. At least.
So like your favorite modern director started in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
I almost want to attribute that to like fangirling.
For me.
Yeah.
Oh, but I didn't care about directors until I became an adult. Like until like
No,
right now.
I'm just saying like because you're like oh like I like this movie a lot, and then you find out you're like oh like he made this one too, like oh he can never do wrong.
No,
right?
my thing. I get you.
Yeah.
I get that, but that's not the reason why I liked it. I watched the movie and then was like, damn, I really like that movie. And I watch another movie and like, damn, I really like this movie. What the hell? They're made by the same person.
Yeah.
Sick.
I mean, it makes sense because they're gonna have similar styles.
Because I've never been one that looks into directors. I always go into a movie blind, so I never know exactly what to anticipate.
Can you give an example? Because I'm having a little hard time thinking of 2 movies that are the same director from like that era.
From that specific era, we have
James Wan.
James Woods.
James Wan. I was like, what?
James
what was
Wan.
it?
James Wan.
Fede Alvarez.
Fede
Alvarez.
Alvarez.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He directed obviously I gotta fit it in somewhere, the remake of Evil Dead, which
Yep.
came out 2013, so that just fits in that time zone.
I'm glad you brought that up
course.
because you never hear about
I
that
never
movie.
hear about
Yeah,
it.
hear about
Not
it,
from
dude.
me.
Yeah.
Never. And then he made Don't Breathe. I haven't seen Don't Breathe 2. I was kind of iffy about it.
I haven't seen Don't Breathe 2.
But that's literally a movie where I like
don't
the
want it.
director,
I
and I
don't
didn't
Don't
watch
Breathe
it.
1 left me feeling dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too. And I
I
remember being
don't-
upset when I watched it, but then getting appreciation for the movie later on. So that's a movie that I went to go view.
It's not
I
a spoiler or
didn't-
anything. I've never looked at a turkey baster the same way.
Look, Fede Alvarez. I'm not trying to shit on him or anything. You know, like he's a great director,
I hear he can be a
great
bit extreme,
horror
yeah.
director. But it's like, oh man, when I saw Don't Breathe, like that shit just left me just
Yes, I know.
There's certain things in movies I watch. I'm like,
You
this.
don't wanna see
It was touching that line. You know, I'm like,
one more step, and it would have been like, oh yeah, I can't watch this. Like,
yeah, like,
and so I'm saying that you're asking for an example that came out
Yeah.
around that same time. That was one example I had on top of my head.
And then I would like, what would you say, James Wan?
No, I had another one.
James Wan's my favorite.
James Wan, yeah, because he did Insidious 1 and 2, which is like the perfect like back-to-back horror movie.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
That's one of the movies on my list here because it's like we got Insidious 1 and 2. We got the Conjuring universe started to be built during this era. Obviously,
yeah.
started off strong.
Again,
kinda died
obviously
down a
it
little bit.
died down a lot, and we started getting like lower quality films like Annabelle. But I can appreciate what it.
Well, but
If I want a cursed doll, I'll go back to the 80s.
But here's the thing, that because he stopped directing the Conjuring
started
series.
producing.
Yeah, he started
Yeah.
producing, and like if you see the other movies that he directed, for example, like Malignant, like
2021.
he came back. I feel like that was a little comeback that he had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm not necessarily fangirling so much as because when I list my movies that are in here, they're like, yeah, I know you guys are gonna both have appreciation for them.
Yeah,
But-
because I was just thinking kind of like Marvel, how some people are like, oh, like this movie's still good. It's like they've been dying down.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And I don't know if it was
Yeah.
just kind of like you were like, oh, like this director's so good, like
No,
he
yeah,
can't
as
do
it
no
is.
wrong.
But it in Aaron Asher, that's what he says.
Ari Aster.
Ari Aster,
Thank you. Man, freaking coming out the gate with swinging with Hereditary.
Oh my God, I know.
Then
Was it
immediately-
Hereditary, Midsommar?
Midsommar, and then right now he has a current movie that's out, which slips my mind.
Bo is Beautiful.
I don't want to go. I literally want to go see it in theaters because I missed the other two. So I was like, it might be worth investing some
It
time
might be a
into.
hidden gem.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a lot about that movie.
Well, I didn't hear a whole lot about it.
Yeah,
Hereditary until I saw it.
I heard a lot about
Bo is
Hereditary.
afraid.
Well, I
Bo
don't
is
say-
afraid.
I'm
Bo is afraid.
Yeah.
I'm so like I try to stay away from so much stuff. I'm not really online very much, to be
Yeah.
honest. So, yeah. So let me just quickly rattle off some bangers from this decade. So we got the Crazies, the first Insidious,
Crazies was fun.
Shutter
Crazies
Island.
fun.
I consider Shutter, even though it's a thriller.
Shutter Island was good.
Yeah, this is just literally 2010. So
Shutter, okay, you keep going. I might have because Shutter Island. That wasn't the one with the ghost camera, right?
No.
Or not ghost camera, but the one where.
No, that's Shutter.
Okay, that's what I thought it
That's
was.
Shutter, yeah.
Shutter Island is specifically with
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plot twist at the end.
Yeah, very good movie. Strongly recommend you watch it. Then immediately the year after we get Grave Encounters, Scream 4.
Grave Encounters.
Yeah,
Grave
see?
Encounters.
I knew what you guys were gonna say.
Well,
Like,
okay,
come
hold
that was
on.
fun.
I'm not gonna say
Great-
it's a good movie.
It's a
It
B
is-
movie. It's a B movie, but
Movies
like,
are great.
B
but
movies are
like,
fun.
it was, yeah.
I'll
yeah,
keep going,
it
so we
was-
don't keep
it's
going.
a
Yeah,
fun.
just
It's
keep
a fun B movie,
So,
sure.
Scream 4 was my first like fun comeback from the first Scream because I love the first Scream. I thought the second one was meh.
Sure,
Third one's
yeah.
probably the worst, and then 4 was just like so much fun, and so I love that one. Then 2012's we got The Bay, Grave Encounters 2, The Collection, the sequel to The Collector, which came out in 2008.
Yeah.
That was my favorite horror movie for a long time. Then Sinister. I know I didn't personally love Sinister. I know that a lot of people disagree
Sinister
with
was okay. I like
Yeah.
Sinister. Yeah.
A
lot of people hate
I
the
wouldn't put it
sequel.
on like a top 10 list, but it
that. But
was fine.
I know a lot of people love that movie, and they couldn't believe that I
No,
I
it's a
didn't like
solid
it.
horror movie.
I know. I never cared for it. I got so bored.
Really?
I got bored the first time watching. I forced myself to watch it a second time,
Wow.
and I was like, I can see it, but
I can see what like you like have to like magnifying glass. Like, what do people like about this movie?
yeah, I had
It
Like,
has
like
its
there's a lot of good
moments.
stuff in it.
Yeah.
So
I think
then-
what was his name? Bagul. I think his character design was kind of meh.
Yeah.
And,
that was
and then the
Scary
kids
face.
killing people were like
dead meat.
like how
Yeah.
how often it doesn't seem super believable
So
that the child will out muscle his whole
Yeah.
family.
So the following year we get Mama, Oculus, Evil Dead 2013.
Oculus was good.
Then we get the Curse, the Curse of Chucky, which was just a
comeback.
Fun, you know what I'm saying? They're taking
That's the
on,
one with the girl in the wheelchair, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
when they're like, is this a remake or is it a
Yeah.
continuation? And it just keeps going. So
Okay.
you see what I mean? Like we're getting like remakes or we're getting development from.
You're
everything.
getting remake sequels.
Yeah, but they're
Okay.
like good. They're not crap. They're not like just.
They're not just cashed in for money.
They're not just like here's a brick.
I
pooped out.
get it.
Yeah.
I feel
Okay.
that.
True.
But then we got the Babadook the following year. As above, as so below.
Okay. All
Basically,
right. 20.
scary
Okay.
Laura Croft,
2014. Got
There's
you.
nothing scary.
You've heard about The Conjuring too. The Conjuring came out in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
That one's solid.
just trying to do like a
solid.
shorthand
Yeah.
version.
No, that was a good one.
Then Insidious 3, The Witch or The Witch.
The Veach.
Oh,
I
know
I
The
like
Witch.
calling it the Veach. I'm
I
pretty
call
sure
it
it's
the
just
Veach.
the witch.
But it was that was a good movie. Again, it's a little slow for me, but I learned to appreciate it just from the special features. I know that shouldn't be the case for white
Yeah,
movies,
yeah.
but I know some people are. I know you had a hard time watching it, right?
We saw it in
slow.
theaters.
saw it in
Remember?
theaters,
Yeah.
And I was very tired.
I
by the end
hyped
of
it up because I was like, "This is cinematography at its finest,"
Yeah.
you know.
It was one of those movies
It
where
really was.
where you
but
get
It
invited
was,
to, like,
yeah.
like, oh, look at this scene, and I'm just kind of like, oh,
Well, 'cause
so the kids talk to the goat.
Yeah, because
Oh.
it's like I went into it. I'm like, this is a film, you know.
Yeah,
This is
cinema.
this is cinema. It's peak
And
horror
I,
cinema.
And I'm
you know?
over here just like, oh, so we're watching a horror movie, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
when does it
like-
happen?
Yeah, it was a slow build up.
It was
but,
lengthy,
Like
it
to
was
give you an
lengthy.
idea of how much work went into that film, they literally, I think all the light was natural light. So it
Yeah.
was either via candle or it was via the sunlight. Like that's how the house was made
Yeah.
from scratch. Like that's amazing how much effort and time and their accents were almost on point to the era.
Yeah.
All right, can keep going on, but I'm not going to.
Fun
Green-
fact: Anna, what's her name? Anna
Anna Taylor-Joy.
Yeah,
Princess
she,
Peach.
she hated her performance in that movie. Like she can't
really?
even she can't watch that movie. Like she says,
I agree. I'm kidding. No.
She
all the
says-
performances are fine. I think the movie was just very slow for me.
It
Uh,
is, yeah, it's just
I got a
pacing.
short.
But anyway,
attention
yeah,
span.
go on.
So I'm gonna just go off. I'm gonna start hitting the years faster. The Wailing. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah,
South Korean film.
South
right?
Korean.
I've
Yeah,
seen it. Yes, yes.
Really good.
that one's good.
Devastating film. Terrifier, Argentinian film.
All right, yeah,
Fantastic.
that one-
Oh my goodness.
that one's good.
Scared you to. Woo!
That one's good. Yeah,
And the stinker there would be the Conjuring 2. Was kind of meh.
The Conjuring 2 was
Because that's when we
it's-
start getting to that. Like,
Yeah,
Train to Busan.
Train
Train
to
to
Busan.
Busan was
Train to
good.
Busan.
All right, good,
And
good.
we're starting to get foreign films added to this mix. And we're starting to see
Yeah,
more
foreign
stuff.
films start getting popularity like in the States
Yeah.
Yeah.
as like not like like remakes. Like no, they're getting popularity as they are.
But you
know?
can see the generation just ramping up, going and
Yeah.
going. Then we get the
Yeah.
Balso experiment. Haven't seen it yet.
Oh
but I
my
know-
God, yeah.
Very
I
excited
remember
to watch
that.
that movie. That's one like on my to watch list. Then
Yeah.
we got Terrified. Finally got your clown.
Terrified. Yeah, no,
Terrifier.
Terrifier. Yeah,
Sorry, I missed
Terrifier's Art the Clown first originally
Terrified
appeared
is
in
Argentinian.
All Hallows Eve, which I think
Yep.
was also was that closer to my decade or his decade?
that's closer to your 20. It came out.
Because I remember watching on YouTube.
I think it was close to 2011. I
No,
saw
it
but I didn't
came
write
out. It came out in
I'm gonna fact check that
2013.
real quick,
I
but
think it
go
came
on-
out in
go
like
on if you want.
2013.
2013.
I think so.
All right, you can have that.
All
one.
Hallows
I'm,
Eve,
I'm
yeah.
gonna just skip some honorable mentions, but like I'm just gonna go faster through it. So we have Overlord.
Oh, okay,
Really
crazy.
good.
Yeah.
The Apostles blew me out of the
2013.
water.
Okay.
2013 for all.
Apostle.
Also,
I
when
wasn't
I
a fan
saw-
of that.
Yeah, we had this conversation on another
Yeah, I
episode.
wasn't a fan of
loved
that.
it, but I remember I grew up very religious, so
It was.
Doo-doo,
It was a
And then-
hardcore religious.
yeah, and then it
like
ramps up.
blasphemy movie.
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
I like to think of Overlord as like Wolfenstein the movie.
Yeah, but it was so.
I like to
It was
think
so
of
fun.
overall
Like,
like
that's-
zombie Nazis. Like
Like Call of Duty.
yeah,
I think about that movie and I'm just like, man, that's really up there. Like I said, like
it's a
9
fun
out of 10.
movie. No,
I
it's a fun
remember-
movie.
It starts off as a war movie, then it
Yeah,
progresses to horror, and then it becomes horror action, and then it just
Yeah.
like, this is what's going on? Yeah, very
No,
fun.
it's a fun movie.
That's another one I saw in theaters. So it was
I
pretty
saw it
fun.
in theaters.
You
as
saw it
well.
in theaters?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw it in
very
theaters.
Oh.
Then
Not like an expensive one, but like I enjoyed it for what
Like
it
a
was.
then we
Regent-
get
like a Regency?
us, Ma, The Lodge, The Wretch, Doctor Sleep. My goodness, and I haven't even talked about Stephen King adaptations that's decade. We have It Too, and then we're both by what was it, Andres and Barbara
Muschietti.
Thank you. They kill it. They make such good adaptations. I love they're so passionate about their craft and their love for Stephen King books and adapting them.
And it is
Yeah.
really hard to follow up like Tim Curry's performance
Yes.
of the clown, but I mean I think Bill Skarsgård, right?
Yeah.
He did a really good job. I think it's iconic for the generation.
Yeah, and like
but
this.
I do think it is hard to follow up Tim Curry.
Yeah.
And so I'll leave it at that. But I'm obviously making my point where it's like we're getting these just bangers after bangers, and yeah, there's some stinkers in there. There was The Boy with Meg
The
from
boy, yeah.
from Walking Dead.
Lauren
Cohen.
Cohen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like there's obviously some bad ones, but that's a give and take. But there's just like a flourish.
I feel
of
like
horror.
with our
Yeah.
decades of horror, because of how movies were made, and they just
Hereditary.
ramp up production, and you get a lot of stinkers.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Like I think it's a much shorter episode to just name the things we liked about those decades as opposed to the things we didn't like about those decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also why there's some fun ones in there, like Rubber. Rubber. Was,
Rubber.
Rubber.
Rubber was 2010.
It was fun.
That's about a killer tire.
A killer psychic tire.
I remember Rubber.
So then And then, I'll for a quick run through. I won't be too long about this, but the '80s were real close runner up for me because I was like,
The '80s were
such
same for me. Yeah.
such good movies. Such things like those are the ones I think of when I think of Foundation. We went back in time. You went to like the building blocks of what structure was. To what it is now. But like I think of what made horror more mainstream. You think of the '80s and '70s.
When the slashers started coming out, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, like
yeah." I feel like horror became like violent and bloody in the '70s due to the Hammer films, which were kind of like the Hammer films were remaking all the classic monsters. Like they remake Dracula, they remade Frankenstein, the Mummy, but they started making them more grungy and bloody and all that.
I will say, as much as you said the '30s were like super influential for horror
Yeah.
movies, I do feel like I see more people wearing like Leatherface and Chucky on their T-shirts.
Yeah,
you don't really
that's
see
true,
like
yeah.
Bela Lugosi.
Texas,
Yeah,
Somebody's
I
t-shirt,
know.
you know?
Texas Chainsaw was in the '70s, so that's So we got Aliens, Texas Chainsaw, Halloween, Tendon, Omen, Jaws, Carrie. Those were all the '70s.
All the '80s, I feel like they
80s,
were
we got
important because of
Hellraiser,
the...
we got Evil Dead, we got Child's Play.
Exactly. So the '80s were important before the practical effects. I feel like in horror, like horror in the '80s was just like the peak of practical effects.
And I know, so like some people will hear my 2010s and be like, "Oh, it's just because you grew up with it." And that's a fair. Maybe I'm biased because I did grow up with it.
Of course, you're
No,
biased.
I'm 100% biased with my
Yeah,
picks.
I know.
But I'm also like, I just feel like it's a perfect combination between everything. Like if you like the original, some people are just not going to enjoy any kind of remake. And that's that's your right. That's your opinion.
Yeah,
your
and I was trying
We're
not to. I was
talking
trying
about
not to be
American
biased
Psycho.
either.
Or no, Psycho.
I haven't seen
Psycho.
the first Psycho.
Psycho's good.
Psycho's
really
good.
Just
The
haven't gotten
Psycho
around to it.
remake is the same movie, but
it's
with
the
Vince Vaughn
same
in
movie.
color.
Yeah, it's the same exact movie.
Then what else? So the '80s we have Reanimator, Evil Dead 2,
The Shining.
Poltergeist, The Shining, The Fly.
Since
I
we
believe
talked
also.
about
The Fly, yeah.
The Fly
Nightmare
with
on Elm Street.
the guy from
The Thing?
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
The Thing.
Jeff
It's
Goldblum.
fantastic.
Yeah. See, I would have chosen the '80s. That would have been my bias because I was like, my favorite movie is The Shining, and that was literally released in the '80s. So I was like, oh yeah, the '80s automatically,
Yeah.
But it's like,
You gotta get your film student flex out.
no, it's hard, yeah. Because I was like, fuck. It's because you can't forget about like the '30s and like those.
Yeah.
You gotta remember where you come from.
Yeah,
you know?
so I was like, as much as
You
I
can do
I
that
fought
now.
it,
It's on camera.
and I fought it. I was like, I really want to choose the '80s or same thing. I was like the 2010s.
That's what, because before we started the podcast on our way while we were driving over here, I was like, hey, just curious, like which one did you pick? Because I gotta change it in the car. Like,
Yeah.
Let me get my notes out.
And I was like the 1930s.
Yeah, because they were both just from when we were growing up, the early 2000s. I was worried about having some crosshair there.
Yeah.
My thing is when I was making my list, or at least thinking about the decade that I was going to choose, was not matching with you guys. That wasn't a problem. I can easily just
write it.
just sport you.
Like, I can talk about 2010s or early 2000s as long as I want, but
I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing this as like a statistical thing, like, oh, there were more scary movies during this time. So
actually, if you look at the gross,
because
movies,
I'm a numbers guy, so I wasn't gonna be like, oh yeah, there was just more.
Yeah,
I wanted to take into account what exactly influenced that generation or what that decade and where it ramped or started to where it ended. That was how I chose mine. So and the '90s didn't have any sleepers either. They had Candyman.
'90s was super good as
they
well.
had the first version of the Ring. Ringu, yes.
They had Jacob's Ladder.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Hellraiser. No, that came out in the 70s.
Blair Witch, The Sixth Sense, Scream. Scream fits there. So like I was like, there's a movie you can appreciate all the generations. So that's why I never like to limit myself.
Every decade had classics.
But,
for sure.
Yeah. So the only reason I chose mine was because I was like, I can see like kind of like the refined version of it, and that's it. That's all.
I will just
answer.
put in this last note before we wrap up. One of the first horror films you ever recommended to me,
The Feast.
The Feast.
Yes!
And that was also 2000. That was 2005.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember we watched that. We weren't super prepared. We're like, oh yeah, let's get pizza. And they were eating, and
extra marinara sauce, please.
Yeah, and then we stopped eating. But yeah, there's just so many good films.
I'm gonna give a shout out to Mr. Andrews. He's the one who my old AP English teacher. He was the one who was like, you know what, like you love horror, I love horror. Like,
wait, how old were you?
Well, I was a junior. So that's when I started watching horror.
Oh, okay.
But it was just really cool that he was just like he basically gave me that movie. He gave me that and Hobo with a Shotgun.
Oh my god.
I'd love to talk about more of these movies in depth, but I think we kind of
we're at that
we
point.
reached the point of what we were here to talk
Yeah,
about.
anything else would just be
Right.
random rambling, and it's like
Which I'm always for, but I don't have to edit, so that's not on me.
I say leave everything in. Everything's gold.
I'm gonna leave the outtakes.
that and you're gonna be seeing some. Since we have video now, we're gonna be like,
Yeah, just move around, make it harder for him to rotoscope.
But yeah, that's gonna be the episode for today.
All
So
right.
we're gonna end it right there.
All right, well, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, we always appreciate your time. And thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Look at this pretty studio now.
Yeah, it looks nice.
We
Looks
have our own
nice. I like what
space.
you did with the place.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right.
But yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Like, subscribe, all that jazz.